South Korea went from dirt poor to super rich in just one generation, and now it's the world's 10th largest economy. K-pop is everywhere, Korean movies win Oscars, and everyone has Samsung phones. But here's the crazy part. South Koreans barely have kids anymore, just 0.75 per woman, the lowest anywhere. And nearly 40 young Koreans kill themselves every week. Their suicide rate hit 27.3 per 100,000 in 2023, way higher than any developed country. What happens next? By 2067, almost half of all Koreans will be senior citizens. If nothing changes, their population will drop from 51 million to just 25 million by 2100, half the country gone. Today, I'm showing you why South Korea's so-called miracle is actually heading for disaster and why you definitely don't want to move there. Just like in Squid Game, where 456 desperate contestants risk their lives for money, millions of Koreans feel trapped in a game they can't win. The problems in South Korea are way more profound than just long work hours or expensive housing. These are just symptoms of more significant issues. 5 huge companies control 60% of all wealth. The kindergarten you attend can determine your entire future, and getting sick without insurance can bankrupt your family. It's no surprise that in Squid Game, one of Netflix's biggest hits, Koreans are desperate for quick money to escape their situations. Tal Jason literally escaped from Korea. Suddenly, online groups about how to leave the country blew up with hundreds of thousands of members. Like the contestants in Squid Game looking for an exit strategy, real Koreans plot their escape. South Korea was broke after the Korean War ended in 1953, at about $79 per person. Then came what they call the Miracle on the Han River. By 2022, each Korean was making an average of around $34,000. Impressive, right? But there's a vast problem hiding behind those numbers. 5 mega companies, chaebols, control almost 60% of Korea's stock market, but employ only 12% of workers. Samsung alone makes up about 20% of its entire economy. That's insane. This has created 2 completely different Koreas. If you land a job at one of these big companies, you're set for life. Everyone else? Stuck with low wages and constant fear of losing their jobs. It's like the VIPs versus the players in Squid Game. The elite lives luxuriously, while everyone else fights for survival. Get this, almost 40% of older kids in Korea live in poverty, the highest in the developed world. Over 2/3 of elderly Koreans pick up and sell trash paper to survive. The desperate situation of the people in Squid Game isn't fiction. It's a reality for millions. Starting your own business? Good luck. The message is clear. Either work for a top company or be nobody. Korean students crush international tests, but at what cost? High schoolers wake up at dawn and study until 2 a.m., 6 days a week for years. No joke. This crazy competition practically starts at birth. Parents fight to get their kids into fancy kindergartens because they know it affects their future. Everything is just a race for the top with no regard to love. Korean families spend 20% of their income on after-school classes and tutoring. All this sacrifice for one thing: getting into one of the Sky universities, Seoul National, Korea, or Yonsei. Like the deadly competition in Squid Game, this educational race eliminates most contestants. Does it sound too much like the Ivy League? The results are heartbreaking. Suicide is the #1 cause of death for Koreans aged 10 to 39. For people in their 20s, suicide accounts for 56.8% of all deaths. Let that sink in. No developed country works hours longer than South Korea. The average Korean works 1,967 hours a year compared to 1,767 in America and just 1,354 in Germany. And we thought Americans were overworked by firms. This insane pace created a uniquely Korean problem: gwaerosa, death by overwork. Korean workplace culture is super strict. Junior employees arrive before the boss, leave after the boss, and must attend mandatory drinking sessions with colleagues after work. Korean law gives workers 15 vacation days a year, but most take just 7, the lowest in the developed world. Women have it even worse, making about 1/3 less than men for the same work. I'm speaking about that, and I recall that things are not more illustrious even in developed countries. For the example of the USA, where people can't even find jobs nowadays, let alone work overtime. Remember that shocking statistic I promised? Here it is. South Koreans kill themselves at a rate of 27.3 per 100,000 people, way higher than any other developed country. Almost half of all Koreans report serious mental health problems, but most won't get help because of the stigma. Housing in Seoul is entirely out of control. The average apartment costs 18.6 times the typical yearly income. For comparison, New York City is at 9.8 and London is at 14.5. Seoul is more expensive than both. A basic one-bedroom apartment in central Seoul costs around $890 monthly rent, almost 28% of the average salary, before you pay for anything else. Would you be able to live with this money? You complain about wages in the USA and the rent you need. Half of all Koreans live in Seoul and its suburbs, which is only 11% of the country's land. That's why everything's so expensive. Remember how Ji-hun and his mom in Squid Game lived in a tiny basement apartment? That's the reality for countless Koreans. Home ownership among Koreans under 40 has dropped by half since 2000, and the countryside empties. This is not entirely the problem of Korea, as we can find many other countries facing this exact same issue. Even the USA struggles with home ownership amongst the youth. With all these pressures, Koreans have basically stopped having kids. In 2024, the fertility rate was just 0.75 children per woman, the world's lowest and nowhere near the 2.1 needed to maintain the population. The math is brutal. South Korea's population will shrink from 51 million people today to 25 to 30 million by 2050. Even worse, the working age population will drop by 60%. Marriage has fallen off a cliff, down 40% since 2000. Young Koreans call themselves the Sampo generation, meaning they've given up three things: dating, marriage, and children. Some have expanded this to Chilpo, or 7 abandonment generation, adding home ownership, friendship, dreams, and hope to the list. Pretty depressing. Like in Squid Game, they're playing a losing game where all the rules are stacked against them. Actually, I do think that Squid Game has, at some points, a more fair system than the one South Korean society provides. In the show, everyone starts as an equal, and there's only one equation for your survival. Brain plus brawn equals money. You won't have to deal with oligarchs keeping you down. Money is the biggest reason people aren't having kids. Raising a child through college in Korea costs about $230,000, one of the highest in the world. Think about why Ji-hun in Squid Game entered the deadly contest to pay for his daughter's basic needs and medical care. The air quality in Korea is also terrible, among the worst in any developed country. On bad days, Seoul's air is actually dangerous to breathe. Many people say they don't want to raise kids in this environment. Plus, there's always the North Korea situation hanging over everyone's heads. This constant threat is yet another reason young people want out. You can see the stress in Europe, for example, as the Ukrainian war finalizes in the East. Since 2006, Korea's government has spent over $200 billion on the problem, including baby bonuses, childcare subsidies, and other measures. The result? Birth rates dropped even faster. Why isn't it working? Because they're treating the symptoms, not the disease. No amount of cash makes up for impossibly expensive housing, toxic work culture, polluted air, and an education system that bankrupts families. Just like the cash prize in Squid Game can't truly fix the contestants' broken lives, these government handouts don't address the fundamental issues. South Korea's rise from a war-torn wasteland to an economic superstar is fantastic, but the very things that made them successful are now killing them. In this regard, it looks similar to Japan, where the anime culture led to the development of porn, which led to declining birth rates. For young Koreans today, the equation sucks. Destroy your health by working insane hours with little chance of getting ahead. Spend most of your money on housing and education. Breathe toxic air. Give up your dreams for a society that no longer delivers on its promises. Many feel like they're playing in their own version of Squid Game, where the odds of winning worsen yearly. Every developed country should pay attention to Korea's crisis. Some hopeful signs exist, such as grassroots movements for better work-life balance, which are growing but running out of time. What do you think? Can South Korea turn this around? Please drop a comment with your country's name, whether you'd want to leave it and why. Would you recommend your country to others? Smash that subscribe button if you want more videos about the most significant issues facing our world today. And if you ever find yourself in South Korea, be more intelligent than Ji-hun, and be more intelligent than Ji-hun at the end of Season 1 and leave it. Trust me. Thanks for watching.